You know what I'm going to talk about now, don't you?
Here we go.
There you go. Ryan knows what's going to be happening because we don't talk enough about our feelings.
So Ryan's backed off about 500 yards from the camera right now, which is a good sign that his comfortableness on this subject. I've got to shrivel up and be all uncomfortable. Coping mechanisms for mental health, which opens up the fact that I struggle with it just like everyone else does.
Ryan, you got anything on this? Now we're pushing Ryan. He's going. Oh.
Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast, as always, with my good friends Jose Noya and Ryan Boniface. How are we, guys?
So weird.
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Those joining on YouTube, just search for Inspiration Nation Jose Noya. We'll see two Joes on the screen. You're not going crazy. That is us on TikTok every Tuesday between 5:30 and 6. Follow Joe. It'll give you a notification when he goes live. We stream the podcast live on a Tuesday when we record before it drops, sometimes around Thursday or Friday, depending when I remember to upload the podcast. I would pretend there's more science to it, but there isn't. Thank you, everyone supporting us, listening, watching, those trawling through the archive. Massive appreciation. Give us a follow on social media. Let us know what you're liking at ListenToIN, ListenToIN. So, I believe this week it is Ryan's subject, but he came empty-handed, so we're going to defer to Joe.
I did come empty-handed.
But before we start, Joe, I just want to throw out a very quick question. Not too much conversation on this, but we're all over social media. We love it. Joe especially loves it. He got me into certain things. There's been some big news this week as far as Twitter goes. I just wanted to canvass from opinions from people who are probably more learned than me on the subject. Try and keep it as apolitical as possible. But what are your thoughts?
I think it's great. He's bought it. I think it's a great thing. I think he means well. I think it'll be good. I think he's going to do it open source or something. He's going to open source Twitter or something. I don't know exactly what that means, but I imagine that means more freedom of speech. I mean, obviously, I hope he still cracks down on people that are trying to do bad things on Twitter. But I think it's a good thing. That's my views on it. He's always funny on Twitter. He's always funny on Twitter as well. I follow him on Twitter. He's funny. So we'll just see where it goes. But I think it's a good thing. That's my view.
Ryan, do you have any thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, I don't think much to the everyday user will be much different. He suggested that he's a big pusher for freedom of speech. So maybe previously outspoken people may get a platform back. I'm thinking maybe Katie Hopkins or Donald Trump, if you're American, potentially may get a platform back. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be that much of a big deal. He's the richest man in the world. He's going to buy big companies, right? It's the way these things work. He's not going out and buying small things. That's not how he makes money. But yeah, otherwise, I don't think much will change from an everyday use perspective.
Cool. Be interesting, I think, to see how it unfolds. I've done myself a little bit of reading because we've referenced Elon Musk loads. People know who he is. The whole Twitter algorithms, left wing, right wing, freedom of speech. Well, I didn't know too much on that. So it's been a bit of interesting reading, but it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds over the coming months. But I thought it was definitely worth a quick reference.
It's pretty astounding, isn't it? To be fair, that he's bought that. It's pretty astounding. The price he paid for it.
Well, it got me. I went back and kind of read through the Elon Musk's story. I say read through Wikipedia and a couple of articles just on where he came from to where he is, and it's still just staggering, isn't it?
What he's achieved in his short life is crazy.
Absolutely is
crazy. Yeah, I agree. Very inspiring, I think. There you go.
And he's my hero because every time I go to pay something and it's got a PayPal option, I don't need to get my card out of my wallet, and it makes my day every time. So that's all thanks to him.
Thanks, Elon.
That is true.
Elon. Thanks, Elon. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
The nation appreciates you. Fantastic.
Right. So, Joe, what are we talking about then after my random ramblings?
No, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. So I want to talk about us blokes, and I'm taking it like that because us blokes, you know what I'm going to talk about now, don't you?
Here we go.
There you go. Ryan knows what's going to be happening because we don't talk enough about our feelings as blokes. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So I want you to talk
As
about.
we referenced before we started recording, Ryan, all the uncomfortableness we feel now is your fault.
I am sorry. I'm sorry.
Now, look, guys, I just want to tell you.
I'll never come unprepared again.
I want to tell the lovely TikTok. I want to tell the nation that I've got a backup. So if one of us runs a bit dry, I just go through my book where I've written ideas, and literally this one has been appeared. This is the one that's the next one on the list. So
can we do the next one on the list?
No.
Come on then, Joe. Hit us with it.
Being uncomfortable. So the reason was this, because I know I go back to my original story, episode 1, and as Lee says, people are trawling through the archive, the very first one where I suffered depression and I feel like I couldn't talk about my feelings, or I denied them really. And it comes from all that stuff in the 80s and 90s where you had to be a man's man and that you don't talk about your feelings. And it wasn't anything that my dad did or anything like that, but it was like very much, you didn't really talk about your feelings. And I think that really did contribute a lot to me not being that much self-aware and actually me building up. And I was trying to talk about, feelings of not wanting to be here. I had feelings like, I'm going to say the word, that, I had feelings that, I didn't want to be here. And, not that I ever made any plans for suicide, but I got to the feeling that I didn't want to be here. I didn't actually think of doing a plan, or, I thought of suicide, the word, but it was like, I didn't want to be here. How could, and I didn't feel like I owe any worth or anything like that. So I wanted to explore the world of feelings from a bloke's perspective or a man's perspective. I want to get this right from, a person who's male perspective, and the sort of things that we having to live up to, because I think it's really important that we have spaces where we can talk about feelings and not feel embarrassed or feel that we can't share. And of course, there's places where you can share this stuff and places where you can't share this stuff, and there's all that thing of oversharing as well. But it almost goes back to our podcast where we talked about, how are you doing and how do we float that around, how are you, but actually meaning it. And in fact, I've been, I do my job as a trainer and a coach, and this actually came up in an influencing session I was running where people were talking about how we can, really speak to people and ask them how they are, but also picking up on the cues to say, hey, if there's something not going right, how can we have that conversation to help each other? You may be a signpost, you may just be there as an ear to talk, but really being open about, not everyone's going to come to work and feel great. And again, that's what I say, like, let's blokes talk about our feelings. So I want to throw it over to you guys, because I've got to be honest, since I've gone through all the work and, I really have dealt with my depression. I've suffered from it over, I'd say over a good number of years now. Although, I still got to keep tabs on myself and be self-aware about things that might happen, or when I get stressed, how I deal with that. But I'm really much more grounded because I've been able to talk about my feelings freely, being able to be, myself, and be able to have those spaces where I can have those conversations. And if you're going to ask me, where do I have those conversations? But even now, if you talk about how I feel, I'll be very open with you. So I'd say to you what they are. But I want to throw it over to you. Now, how honest are you about your feelings? And have you got anywhere where you can talk about feelings? Or is it something you think you don't really need to talk about? But if you ever need to talk about feelings, do you have any way that you could do that, I suppose? So I'm going to throw it over to you guys and see what you think.
So Ryan's backed off about 500 yards from the camera right now, which is a good sign that his comfortableness on this subject. I'm going to ask you a question, Joe, because when we first started this podcast in January, obviously we've known each other for years and years and years and worked together on and off, did lots of bits and bobs, etc. together. But then we caught up a few times, and I think when we started doing the podcast is when we really started talking. The frequency went up, etc., etc. And you really pushed me on the uncomfortableness of talking about my feelings and not being comfortable with it. And we had lots of off-camera conversations about stuff. So from 3 years ago, Lee, to now, Lee, I think through my lens I've got a lot better with both understanding how I feel and talking about it, but I don't know if that's a reality. I don't know if you've seen a difference in that time.
I think I have, because you're now talking about things like mindfulness. You're talking about, I think you're much more open, especially in this particular environment, definitely. And if I ask you, you will tell me. And that's been a big shift, because I think before you'd probably have been, I think you would have sort of taken, you would have probably maybe given me some of it, but I'm confident you would give me, if you were feeling really difficult, if you were feeling really down, I think you would say it, which I think is a really, really big thing. So I think, yes, that from my perspective, but I don't know. I mean, obviously, you know, we come on the podcast, we talk sometimes and stuff like that, but on the podcast for sure, when we talk for sure, I suppose, Ryan, you know, maybe that question should be put to Ryan as well. What do you think about Lee? How do you think the growth's gone for Lee in terms of his feelings when you've had chats?
It's hard for Ryan because he's always idolised me, so he only sees the perfect that is here.
It's not half wrong. Lee and I don't really talk feelings though, so it's hard to say what. Definitely 3 years ago, Lee, I didn't talk feelings. This was almost a business agreement that when we started this podcast. So yeah, I suppose you could say actually yes, because 3 years down the line, I would consider us good friends. But 3 years ago, I would have considered us friends. But this felt very much like I need you to do this. Can you do it? Yes, great, cool. And then it felt like we kind of built that rapport, both as a result of this and as a result of working together as well. So I suppose, yes, in that sense, but I didn't know Lee well enough 3 years ago to the extent that I would know him now to really comment too much on that. But I think the fact that relationship is born and we're now happy to have these conversations, not happy, but we're partially content with having these conversations as in a group now, kind of shows that for both of us that's probably a yes, because I'm the same. I wouldn't have been like this before we started doing this. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. And the reason I asked Joe is and I know we joked around and we hammed it up at the start when you said we'll make it uncomfortable, so of course we do that. Oh God, Joe's gonna make us uncomfortable. But actually, when you say we can talk about feelings, how do you feel about being open, blah 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 blah, I don't feel like I think I would have 3 years ago and gone, oh my God, and shrivel up and be all uncomfortable. I'm just like, almost want to just shrug my shoulders and say, yeah, of course we do. But I've gone on the journey over 3 years to get there. So it makes, you know, and I think about it, there's obviously some advice to give there in how to do it. But I like to think that I'm quite comfortable with that now. And, you know, if anyone asks how I'm feeling, I can, you know, depending on my relationship with them, can be quite open about that. But not only that, that I'm even more, it's always been like a coaching tool that when something's gone wrong, you can tell people what went wrong and what you learned from that, and that encourages them. That you know, that you learn from mistakes, etc. But I actually think that I'm probably a lot more comfortable now, or if not, it's just part of my pattern to also talk about, you know, the way I felt about things in the past and how I've learned from that, and I feel quite comfortable that you know, like you do with the depression thing, Joe, and you use that as a real anchor to talk people into, you know, what you can do and how you can pick yourself up and you learn and you grow and you develop. And I'm quite comfortable talking about that side of things now. So not just the factual stuff, but kind of like the emotional side of things. And I think it's come from the fact where you say is there a space to do it. This is a big part of that. And I think with my friends now, I'm a lot more comfortable talking to them about feelings, or even encouraging them to talk about their feelings. There's, you know, I quite often with people now, when something's going on, I will ask them how they're feeling, and depending who it is, sometimes I have to kind of coax that out of them, because it's not the way we necessarily would have interacted 5 or 10 years ago, but it is now. And I think it always gets a good pace when people know it's safe to talk about how they feel. It's quite cathartic and it's quite good. And I think, you know, something I learned from you, Joe, is coaxing people out of that, getting that initial feelings reaction, and almost not blanking it, but pushing through that, not giving that any weight and being like, no, but how do you feel? And encouraging it out from people. So I'm kind of, you know, passing it on, so to speak.
It's so good, because that is like thinking past that first, like, how are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm fine. But actually going beyond that, isn't it? And I think I would love that. And the reason I would say, actually, when you were talking, I remember, you know, if we go back 3 years, I remember you, well, not long ago, that you did almost like a well-being video, didn't you?
Yes, I did, yes.
So I wouldn't imagine you did that 3 years ago, or even before that. I wouldn't imagine you would.
No, because that was, yeah, you're right. That was one where I talked about my own, you know, coping mechanisms for mental health, which opens up the fact that I struggle with it just like everyone else does. And I sent it to you, I think, because I've got quite a bit of praise. And you're right, I probably wouldn't have done that. Both from the being that open, but also understanding that other people would benefit from hearing, that other people are in that same boat, and it's good to share like that.
And it's setting that groundwork, though. You almost like opened up the conversation. You got a lot of, like you said, you got a good feedback, didn't you, from it? Yeah. Oh, it was good. It was nice. And because there's a lot of that thing that people are afraid to open up because they're not sure of going to your next thing that I think the growth is here about feelings, judgment, your judgment experiment about, I'm not going to feel judged. I'm going to step back from it. So again, I think there was another piece that I picked up from you that you want to sort of try and think about when you get things, not feel with judgment. And not passing that on. So again, that for me is another piece I think I've really noticed about you, that you're bringing things to the table now that are those character feelings that make up the human condition, because we can't avoid them. We are those. So yeah, that's where that's the points that I've picked up from your growth. So yeah, I'm still sticking with that. Yes, I think I've seen a lot more from you in terms of the feelings part.
Can I give you a quick example? I know I'm talking a lot here. Can I give you a quick example on the judgment thing?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm really, and it's not foolproof whatsoever in the slightest bit, but I'm more and more trying to push myself on the, don't be judgmental, etc., etc., etc. And one of the places I found it really good is when I'm driving. So we all know what it's like. Someone's driving slow, or all those things where you start shouting at the car in front and you get wound up, and etc., etc. And it was the other day, so I was driving along and someone was going super slow, and a big crowd was building up behind me, and I was the one behind that, and I in my head I told myself, I said, anything could be going on. They might be they could have their pet in the car they're taking to the vet and they're driving slowly so it doesn't fall over, or they've got something fragile, or they're just lost and they don't know where they are, or they're not feeling. Could be a million. And I was like, just back off. There must be good reason, and do. And actually it got to a point where they could, and that they'd obviously were aware there's a queue behind, and they pulled in clearly to let everyone pass and then pull back out. So they were consciously, deliberately slow for a reason. And I know there's probably been a few times in my life where I've had to do that as well, and I remind myself of that as well. And they did. And then actually, because they pulled over, but I've been backed off and given the space and stuff, I kind of self-gratified. And I felt good that I hadn't been pushing along or got myself wound up or whatever else. And, I was definitely one of those people who would just be like, out of my way, I've got to be somewhere, years ago. And I'm really trying to, I know it's a silly little example, but things like that where I'm trying to be like, well, there's a reason they're doing whatever they're doing. So just give them the benefit of the doubt. And I don't do it everywhere, and it's not all the time, but I keep trying to push myself on that no judgment thing, which for my bit just makes me feel calmer about whatever's going on, which is the good bit for me.
No, I love that.
That's my little update feedback. And again, I'm not perfect with it. I'm not preaching to people that, you never get wound up by anything or anyone, or prejudge people or anything, because that still happens. But I'm just trying to encourage myself to just be a bit better with that every day.
It's great. Honestly, that judgment thing's such a good thing. Right, have you got anything on this? Now we're pushing Ryan. He's going. Oh.
I want to say no, because you don't really notice it in yourself, though, do you? Not really.
That's why I asked that question. You're absolutely right about that.
When I joined the Zoom today, Joe, you were a bit late. Lee said to me, actually, no, you were both late. I was here by myself. As always, these two are always late, by the way. I'm always here.
You just get every sentence. You just have
bang on
more and more.
Bang on, 5:30 I'm here every week. Apart from last week. But Lee came in, he was like, oh, you're all right. I was like, yeah, good. You all right? He was like, yeah, good. And then there's about 5 seconds of silence. He went, so how are you? And I was like, 3 years ago, we wouldn't have had that interaction, and I wouldn't have given you anything, and you wouldn't have asked and taken anything away. And my answer was different the second time, because I am good, I am okay, but how are you? I was like, oh, I'm a bit tired, work's been a bit full on, as I'm sure most people can feel like that. But I'm not okay, I'm okay. So I didn't lie to you or give you a false answer. But I think if I met somebody in the street and they said, "Are you okay?" I'd be like, "Yeah, not bad. You okay?" I wouldn't go to them and be like, "Oh, I'm so drained from work. It's so full on at the minute." Blah blah blah. It wouldn't, you wouldn't have that conversation. So I think it just depends on the rapport you build with people. I think, especially for me, if I've got a strong rapport with someone or a good relationship with someone, then I'm more likely to give them more of me, right? Be a bit more vulnerable about it. Not saying that that's a vulnerability, but otherwise there's no need to open yourself up. You're not going to walk down the street and tell a strange life story or everything that's going on, are you? Because to me, that's not normal. I know some people probably do that, but it's not, to me, that isn't what I constitute as something that is part of my daily routine. So yeah, I suppose there is more, especially since we started doing the podcast, that I kind of am open about. But I always kind of back things off with self-deprecating humor a lot. I tend to do that quite a bit. But that's always been who I am. And I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, I don't really, for me, I haven't really noticed any of a change because you don't see it in yourself, do you? So that's probably about as far as I've got.
Well, I think just there, you just revealed the growth that you said, you speak to Lee, you wouldn't normally spoke about that, but you said you need to have the rapport, but that's where it is, isn't it? And that's what I want to encourage, is I want to encourage those conversations to be had. And I think developing rapport with people, having that space before I come along to talk to Lee about how you're really feeling. And that's what I think. It's much better now than it was. And Ryan, I would say for you as well, I think you're definitely much more open about how you're feeling. Even the podcast, you're quite open about where you are with things, honest, which is really, really good, which you have to be. And that's the sort of purpose of this, because feelings, I think, lead to, if we don't address them, I think can lead to really difficult times for someone personally. And again, yeah, you're not going to go down the street and just say, "Oh, how are you doing today? Oh, well, by the way," and then you spill out everything. Although some people can if they're really that bad, but it's just, I want people to be able to go and ask people and be, and try to pick up on nuances where people aren't feeling great. And I think you should have a group of people that you trust and build rapport with, like Ryan and Lee and the podcast here. We do tend to have that, which I think is really, really good. So on that, going back to Lee's judgment, I just wanted to go back to a book I've read at the minute, which is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And I want to read a little bit an excerpt because it talks about judgment. So Lee, you're in good company here.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist, right up there, taught at Harvard University. He's got his own YouTube channel with over 3 million, or it could be more than that, 6 million or whatever subscribers. But there's a bit in his book which is really good. I'll just see if I'll read a bit out. It says here, it says, it is true that, this is talking about Freud, it recommended that psychoanalysts listen to their patients in therapy, they be tolerant, empathic, and not voice critical, moralistic judgments. But this was for the express purpose of helping patients feel comfortable in being totally honest and not diminish their problems. This encouraged self-reflection, allowed them to explore warded off feelings, wishes, even shameful antisocial urges. It also, and this was the masterstroke, allowed them to discover their own unconscious conscience and its judgments and their own harsh self-criticisms of their lapses and their own unconscious guilt, which they had often hidden from themselves, but which often formed the basis of their low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. If anything, Freud showed that we are both more immoral and more moral than we are aware of. This kind of non-judgmentalism in therapy is a powerful and liberating technique or tactic, an ideal attitude when you want to better understand yourself. But Freud never argued, as some do who want all the culture to become one huge group therapy session, that one can live one's entire life without ever making judgments or without morality. In fact, his point on civilization and discontent is that civilization only arises when some restraining rules and morality are in place. So the big crux of that is that being non-judgmental makes you more self-aware, because you're more willing to face the things that are difficult for you. And so I just wanted to share that with you, Lee, because I think
no, it's good. I do think that's true. I do find that as well.
Yeah. And so, you discovered the benefits of that. So, so to be able to, so I suppose when we do things, I mean, when I was suffering with my depression, I was being self-critical all the time. Like, you're no good at this, Joe, you're no good at that. And I was use the word Joe, so I'm using Jose, but Joe, this, and it would just be not self-deprecating where Ryan uses it in a way, there's a bit of humour to what's the word? To alleviate a bit of tension or whatever it is, Ryan. Maybe you can expand that a little bit. But for me, it was really serious. It was really that voice in your head telling me, you're no good, you're rubbish. And I was listening to that, and I was going deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where I suffered with such self-worth. It was so low that I didn't want to be here. And that's where I don't want people to get. I want people to be able to voice it in a place where they feel safe and have rapport and have that safety, so they don't have to go and visit those places. And in fact, get that unconscious conscience that Jordan Peterson's talking about, in which we can really explore and become more self-aware and have people around us, because friends that are good for us, we talk about the people who surround ourselves with, having people we can really talk to in a way that if I said to Lee or Ryan, I'm not feeling it today, you guys did really well, especially when I'm going through this difficult time, or Mum passed away, I was able to tell you, and I didn't feel judged. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I think, going back to the topic of us blokes, can we talk about feelings, and I think there's other, females, or, when we talk about gender, any human being needs to be able to talk about feelings in some way and have that space. But that was my piece there. But Lee, you're in good company, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
There you go.
Good stuff, Joe. Right, our little countdown time has come up, so I'm going to do some shilling before we run out of time.
Okay.
Appreciate the nation out there, everyone listening, downloading, watching us on YouTube. Just look, Jose Noya, InspirationNation, stick it in your Google machine. You can find any way to watch or listen to us. And of course, head over to inspirationnation.org.uk. Everything is there. Links to YouTube, full back catalogue of all the episodes, details of the coaching service. Sign up for Joe's newsletter. And of course, you can get your swag. It's been a while since I said that, Ryan. I know you love it.
All merch, isn't it?
I'm modelling my, let's see if we get it in, Jose Noya hoodie here right now. Over at the Nation, Joe has got his face mask up there. There's some mugs around somewhere. I've got one hiding behind my monitor. Wait. Oh, I'm knocking stuff over, but I'm going to get it. There we go.
I'm the only one who hasn't got my mug.
Oh, Joe, you are the mug. Everything over there. Support the Nation. And of course, most importantly, give us a follow on social media at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN. Search out for Joe as well. Leave us comments. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, and tell friends and family. And I mentioned it once again, there is a lot of archive trawling going on there. So if you are new to the show, we have got, 3 years plus worth of content there now. 3 years continuous of podcasts, save for 1 week where I did a very short 2-minute excuse that we didn't do one. But for that, 3 years, also all our interviews are on there as well. Loads of great stuff. Go back, listen, tell us what you like. We appreciate it all. Right, closing thoughts and takeaways, guys, before we head off for the week.
I just want to kind of say, if anyone is struggling with mental health issues, especially in the UK, then there is a phone number for the National Suicide Prevention Helpline, which is 0300 304 7000. And I'll say it again, it's 0300 304 7000. You can also text 85258 to be connected to a crisis volunteer if you need any support in the UK.
Good call out there, Ryan. We'll put the details in the show comments for everyone as well.
That's fantastic. Okay.
So, Joe, what are you taking away from your question and topic this week?
My takeaway is to still, I think, going on non-judgmental, don't judge yourself, and have a space, make sure you've got a network of people that you can talk to and have a safe space with. And Ryan, fantastic about that number. If you haven't got anybody, then as Ryan said, reach out to the charities. I mean, Samaritans as well, if you type in samaritans.org.uk, again, they'll have lots of contact there. So Samaritans, I worked for them for a year. Fantastic. So yeah, that's mine.
Ryan?
There's no shame in talking about feelings being a man, as awkward as it is. I know we kind of made it a big deal on today, but it's not that important. It's not that important about your pride about not talking about fitness. It's massively important, but your pride isn't important in comparison to everything else. So if you need to talk to someone, just bloody talk.
That's fantastic. Yeah, love that, Ryan.
Just bloody talk might be the title for the show this week as
well.
Yeah,
I really love that as a title. Yeah, I do. Yeah,
might put that on a shirt as well, like the punch in the face one. For me, it's just look after yourself, and I know I'm doing this already, but non-judgmental. I'm just going to keep reinforcing that for myself, because it's the personal benefits for me in my own well-being have been fantastic.
And so, I want to be more conscious of that as well. I think it's something for me. I definitely, even though we talk about these things, it's actually the practice of it, isn't it? So, I'm definitely.
It's two ways. Everyone doing it. It's not judging, but the first step is not presuming judgment against you, and it's just does wonders.
Can I say something before we wrap up? Before we do the sign off?
Go on quickly. You've got to get in there before I say 3, 2. Oh, I nearly finished it there. Go on.
That's it. The whole thing. I want us, listeners, subscribers, to contact us through social media to see what you want us to talk about. So again, this call on you. So I know to say, Lisa, it was trawling for the archive. Message us over social. Go to InspirationNation.org.uk and drop Lee a message, because he mans the website. If there's a subject, post it in there, and we can use that subject for the subjects that are important to you, that you want our perspective on. Really happy to talk about that. So there's just something I want to float. I think I want to make this sort of a regular sort of feature for our podcast to invite the fourth member of the nation into the room, i.e. through our subscribers and listeners, and we can talk about those things. That's what I want to do. Thank you.
Good shout. Yes, absolutely. We want to hear from you. Right. We'll be back again next week. Again, everyone, follow Joe on TikTok. Noya_InspirationNation. You'll get alerts when we are live. See the podcast before it is out. And for everyone else, all podcast platforms and YouTube, we appreciate all of you. We'll be back next week. 3, 2, 1. InspirationNation. Catch you guys later.
So I want to know now, what's your biggest takeaway? Don't forget to hashtag it with InspirationNation in the comments below, and make sure you commit to action. Thank you for checking it out. So don't forget you can catch all our other Inspiration Nation podcast episodes right over here. So go check them out. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because that will tell you when your next video goes live by you hitting that amazing bell. So until next time, it's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you right over there.